My buddy Bob Goff often says that in life, to get what you want, sometimes you need to find a workaround. When I was a little kid, I started doing magic shows, and I remember my first magic kit came with a magic wand, which every magician needs. This one was cool. It was black and white, and it was plastic, and eventually I broke it. Well, I kept doing magic, and after a few years, I begged my dad, who worked with wood, if he could make me a magic wand. And he made me a magic wand that I've had for years now. Check this out. Isn't that awesome? He turned this on a lathe, and then he stained it and polished it, and I've used this for years and years and years, and I've always loved it. And then I fell in love with magic history, and I thought, well, this is my wand, but I would love to have a wand that was also associated with the history of magic. If you come to our house, you can see the posters behind me. All over our house, we love history and antiques and vintage stuff. And so I started searching for a vintage magic wand, you know, one that was connected to one of the great illusionists of the past. And I don't know if you know this about old stuff, but it's expensive. Not only is it expensive, but most of the time, if you find really cool old stuff, somebody else is into it and they've already bought it. And so there weren't very many magic wands from the past that were still available. I needed to create a workaround. About 2 years ago, my family was headed to New York. We were going on a trip. I was there for some work. They don't ever want to go when I'm going to Hoardville, Nebraska. So once I knew we were headed to New York, I thought, I want to visit Houdini's house. What a lot of people don't know is that Houdini lived in Harlem for, I think, 26 or 27 years in this really cool old brownstone. And I had been by it once before, but I couldn't go inside because at the time, the gentleman who owned it just wasn't into that. But I had read a little article about the family that bought the house. They weren't magicians, and they just wanted to restore it to what it used to be, and they found out their house was owned by Houdini. So they, for a limited time, were offering tours. I reached out to them, I set up a tour, we went to the house. And here's where it got interesting. Over the years, the previous owners had separated the house into different floors to make different residences that they could rent out. And the family wanted to put it back to the way it was with the original staircases. And as they were putting the stairs back in, they started pulling out some of the floorboards. Well, they just happened to be pulling out floorboards while I was there on a tour. And I asked the new owner, I said, what are you gonna do with that old wood? I walked away with two really cool things that day. The first thing I walked away with was a brick. It was actually part of one of the walls of Houdini's house, and they put in a window and they took out the brick, and that brick is now on the shelf behind me, and it's holding up all of Houdini's original first edition books. The second thing I walked away with was a board. That's right, a long 2x4 looking board. It was a floorboard from Houdini's house. It was actually the part of the house where he would use as his office, and he would be designing his illusions. A sweet lady stopped me and said, let me give you a bag to put that in, because you walking around with a brick in one hand and a board in the other, it looks like you're up to no good. From the very second we got the brick, I knew it would end up on our bookshelf, but I wasn't sure yet what I was gonna do with the wood. And then I thought, what if I made it a magic wand? I had found my workaround. I had a piece of wood that was closely connected to the greatest magician that the world has ever known. This has got to be what I do. Now, this wood came out of a 100-year-old brownstone. It was old and brittle and dry. I knew that not anybody could just turn this into a magic wand. So I took it to the greatest illusion builder in the world, John Gahn. John Gahn has built props for every magician that you've ever heard of. So I brought the wood to him and I said, could you turn this into a magic wand? I knew it would be a tough job, but I also knew if anyone was up for the task, John would be, and he and his guys created something beautiful.
You gave us a board from the floor of Houdini's home in New York City and asked for a wand to be made out of this. Old wood, interestingly soft. Put it on the lathe, and here is what I made from it.
This is my wand made out of Harry Houdini's brownstone. Isn't that incredible? The black tips and the silver band and the stained wood. I absolutely love it. It is perfect in every way. And guess what? There isn't another one in the world just like it. And it all came from thinking of a workaround. So here's my question for you today. What do you want in life? Maybe it seems silly to want a magic wand, but it was something I cared about and I was passionate about. I'm sure there's something you care about and you're passionate about. Maybe you've been hitting the wall with it, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Another thing my buddy Bob says is sometimes in life you got to use what you have to get what you want. So stop looking at the things you don't have. Start looking at the things you do have, and you just might find a workaround.